When discussing the best players of all time, the best MVPs, one guy at the top of that list is Michael Jordan from 1988, as not only was the MVP, but also the Defensive Player of the Year. Now, that 88 season was nearly 40 years ago, and with so much time passing, the myth of Jordan kind of fading. You have people coming out of the woodwork saying he was overrated, his era was overhyped, and his stats were inflated. Case in point, Tom Haberstroh of Yahoo Sports. Now, looking at this article that went viral, the main claim is that Jordan 88, by the home stat keepers, has numbers inflated and just kind of doctored to win the Defensive Player of the Year. And before we dive into that very quickly, Tom Haberstroh's article was framed as a LeBron vs. Jordan article, not just Jordan solely. The goal of this article, the main objective, is to knock Jordan down a peg and LeBron James up a few. And my first big time gripe with the article, when saying Jordan's stats were doctored and inflated, 80% of the article was citing sources of other stat keepers on different teams in different decades. For example, this guy Alex Rucker with the Grizzlies in 1996. No connection to Jordan, the Bulls, or even the 80s. Now, what Alex Rucker does claim is that a guy like John Stockton's assists were inflated by Utah stat keepers, which is a pretty bold claim. Now, that is a claim, but if you want to look at actual game film, something this article doesn't have, look at LeBron James' 2018 Cavs vs. Raptors in Cleveland. LeBron in this game had 17 assists at that point, the highest mark of his career. And just go to the first quarter off the bat. A lot of LeBron's assists, let's just say, very loosely defined as assists. I mean, look at that one to George Hill right there. A glorified outlet pass at half court. Hill takes a couple of dribbles, a couple of steps, makes a layup. That is a quote-unquote assist in the modern era. Now look at this one, Kevin Love. A pick and pop, catches, pump fake, kind of a jab, dribble, and shot. For LeBron James, that was an assist. My overall point being, looking at any era, there can be questionable steals, assists, just questionable stats across the board. And looking back at Jordan, the main point of this article, what Haberstroh says, the narrative he creates, is that Jordan 87 was pissed he didn't win the Defensive Player of the Year over Michael Cooper. So coming into 88, he made it a point to win the award, rack up steals, as well as blocks. And the article heavily implies Jordan 88 was undeserving of the DPOY. And first, looking at 88, Jordan's overall ranks, not looking at steals or blocks. Defensive plus minus, he ranked first. Defensive win shares, ranked second. And defensive rating, ranked fourth. The guy who finished second behind Jordan 88, it was Mark Eaton. And comparing Eaton versus Jordan in those categories, MJ comes out on top every single time. Now, going back one year to 87, it was basically Jordan versus Cooper for the DPOY. Now, Jordan, defensive win shares, ranked third. Defensive plus minus, ranked sixth. Steals was second, blocks 15th, but for guards, ranked first. Compared to Michael Cooper, the DPOY winner, Jordan surpassed him in all those stats. However you slice it with MJ, either 87 or 88, I'd argue both years, was the rightful Defensive Player of the Year. And looking back at these stat-juicing allegations, Michael Jordan 87, before these allegations started, 2.9 steals, or scoring-wise, 37 points on nearly 28 shots, which is a pretty heavy offensive workload. Now, logically thinking, not just looking at numbers, Michael Jordan 88 got Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. So, with that being the case, Jordan, his shot attempts came back down to 24.4 and his scoring went down to 35. Now, what went up were his steals from 2.9 to 3.2. Now, logically thinking, is it so insane that Jordan offensively took a step back to focus more on defense? I mean, a jump from 2.9 steals to 3.2 isn't some massive leap, massive improvement. And again, Jordan 88 had added motivation to being snubbed from 87. Now, one thing Haberstroh is really obsessed with is the home stats versus the away stats, and the overall discrepancy in steals as well as blocks. But one thing this guy ignores, just never talks about, is the NBA in the late 80s, even the early 90s. The road trips, the travel, was extremely tough. Look at the Bulls' first road trip in '88. November 23rd to December 5th, 13 days, 8 games, 3 back-to-backs. That's an absolutely brutal schedule that in the modern NBA, you rarely, if ever, see. Now, compare that to the Bulls' first long homestand, December 29th to January 12th. 15 days, 6 games, 0 back-to-backs, and no travel. I don't care if you're a pro athlete, stay-at-home parent, work at Walmart, Target, or Subway. Having days off just kind of refuels you and makes you much, much better when you return to your job or your sport. And for the NBA, rest it's paramount to success. And throughout the entire article, this guy has fancy graphs, fancy numbers, but just basic things like rest are never taken into account with the road versus home stats. And going one step further, looking at the '88 Bulls. Home games with 0 days rest, they had 6. Road games, the same criteria, 14, more than double. Now home games, road games with 1 day of rest, at home 23, on the road 18. Games with 2 days of rest, at home the Bulls had 12, on the road had 9. What you have right there is a pretty clear picture that Chicago at home versus on the road had much more rest. And to kind of tie this to present day players, look at Luka Doncic, the NBA scoring champ in 2024. Luka with 0 days rest, 29 points per game, 44% shooting, all full from deep, a 9-game sample size. Now, Luka with 2 days rest, from 29 points to nearly 35. Field goal percentage up by 4.5%, 3 percentage up by 7%. That sample size is 11 games, roughly similar to the 9 games with 0 days rest. If you're looking for a more logical conclusion, a more rational conclusion, it's that players with more days of rest, they perform better, specifically at home. That's true for Luka Doncic, LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, really any player in league history. And looking at '88 Jordan with that much needed rest, at home versus on the road, more points per game, more assists, boards, steals, and blocks, and his field goal percentage up by 5%. If only Jordan's steals went up at home and that was it, the points were down, assists, boards were all down, then it might be a little bit fishy. But his home stats just drastically better than his road stats. And Tom Haberstroh, to his credit, has tons of stats, numbers, data, and really fancy spreadsheets. When I look at each of these graphics, they're all sort of kind of tweaked to his own narrative to varying degrees. For example, look at this one. Home stats, blocks and steals versus road stats, blocks and steals. And the players listed are DPOY winners. And of course, Jordan ranks first with the biggest differential, home versus road. Now, what Haberstroh doesn't understand, can't really comprehend, is this list, it's mainly big men. Mark Eaton, Ben Wallace, Jaren Jackson, Metta World Peace, Ben Wallace, and Dennis Rodman. When you're talking basketball, what's easier to get? A steal in the passing lane or a shot block at the rim versus a 7-foot big? Obviously the steal on the perimeter. And for Jordan, how he played, much like Alvin Robinson, aggressive, jump in the passing lanes, and trying to get easy steals for layups. But for this graphic, Tom Haberstroh makes it steals and blocks. Now, the thing with Robertson, a great guy in the passing lanes to get steals, but shot blocking wise was kind of a 0. His career high in shot blocks for a season was 0.5, when Michael Jordan is highly regarded as one of, if not the best shot blocking guards in league history. And if you take blocks out of it, just look at steals. Robertson 86 and won the DPOY. At home, 4.4 steals per game. Jordan 88 only averaged 4. Now, Robertson on the road was 2.9. So think about that. Tom Haberstroh in this article on purpose omitted the stat and didn't highlight it. And for his graphic, tweaked it ever so slightly, making it steals and blocks. The entire goal of the article is looking at steals by themselves. Now, why he didn't do that is Robertson and Jordan, their numbers, home versus away, look eerily similar. Now, that right there is my last point, but I'll finish it with this one thing. Let's say Jordan's stats, his numbers, steals, blocks, they're all doctored, they're fake. At the end of the day, what does that change? Michael Jordan, still a 6-time champion, 5-time MVP. The shot over Russell still happened. The flu game still happened. Shot over Elo still happened. Shrug game still happened. Averaging 41 versus the Suns still happened. What I see from Haberstroh is a desperate attempt to bring Jordan back down to reality and really put LeBron James ahead of him. And the way he went about doing this, with selective graphics, selective stats, was just downright slimy. And I guarantee you, if I look at LeBron James, a Steph Curry, guys in the current era, I can find assists and steals that were kind of inflated and boosted up by the stat keepers and looseness of the modern NBA. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.